the vertical stream horizontal stream, and I hate horizontal streaming, so I switched it back over, and now I am on the vertical stream. We'll see if that gets some more people joining. We'll see how it works. As always, though, please take a moment, hit the like button and subscribe button. We do these streams every Monday through Friday where we talk about Freemasonry. So anything you guys want to chat about when it comes to Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys and hear what it is that you want to talk about. My ideas, we're talking about Freemasonry in China, because China is finding itself in the news for various reasons, primarily the 104% tariff they were talking about. Also talking about Freemasonry, or not even Freemasonry, but the Windsor Masonic Temple and Temple Blooms and some of the very cool and very awesome events that we have coming up, or that they have coming up, including an event on April 11th, a reading from a play where admission is free. You don't have to pay anything, but you can provide donations, which go to support the artists taking part in the readings. So that will be a lot of fun. But in the meantime, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Let's wait and see who all joins us and what it is that you want to talk about. We'll see if potentially we get a few more people joining us on this stream. And hit the like button, as always. Hit the subscribe button. Let me see if I can get this thing a little bit more centered. Give it a minute. Let's see, we'll go like that. Trying to see what I can do to make this camera a little bit more centered. All right, there we go. I think that'll be good. Let's ask the poll question one more time. And welcome, if you're just joining us, please hit like, please hit subscribe. If you're on my other channel, welcome to or other stream, I should say, welcome to this one. Every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we chat about Freemasonry. So if you are just joining us, Warrior Cat Fan Club says hi. Well, hi, Warrior Cat Fan Club. I hope that you are doing well. I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know if you've ever been on this stream before or checked this out before. I don't recognize you, but every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we chat about Freemasonry. Let me know if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, or anything else you kind of want to chat about. But positive, negative, neutral, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Today, I was thinking of talking about Freemasonry in China, as well as special events happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple and Temple Blooms. Thank you, Warrior Cat Fan Club. Truly appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the Square and Compass Promotions live stream, where every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we live stream and we talk about Freemasonry. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Freemasonry. Again, positive, negative, neutral. If you are a Freemason, I'd love to hear what your thoughts and experiences are like. If you're not, but you have any questions or comments about Freemasonry, I'd love to hear those as well. Sigma is on the chat. Hello, Sigma. How's it going? I hope that you are doing well. I'm just trying to get my poll question ready. Sway with the game. I know about China since I was studying Kung Fu. Do you know anything about China and Freemasonry? Because there's a little bit I know, but I'm sure there's plenty I don't. Sway with the game. Welcome to Sway with the Game. Please hit like and subscribe. I once shit Bricks, does this make me a Freemason? It does not. I am very, very sorry to say it does not. However, that does not stop you from being able to hit the like and subscribe button, Sway with the Game, and I hope that you will do so. As well as let me know if you have any questions or comments about Freemasonry. Positive, negative, neutral. Warrior Cat Fan Club, you slay. Thank you, Warrior Cat Fan Club. I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. You are pretty great yourself. As always, please hit like and subscribe. And thank you to the person who answered the poll question with the plan to. That makes me happy because there are a lot of pretty incredible events happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple Ballroom. And I love it whenever I can get the chance to support. How deep do Freemasons run? I'm not sure what you mean by, like, how many members do we have? How many members? Is that what you mean? Or, like, how active are we? Because membership-wise, there's approximately, it goes back and forth, but there's approximately 850,000 to 1 million Masons in America, probably closer to 850. In Ontario, where I'm from, there's approximately 28,000 Freemasons in Ontario. So, give or take, 28,000. So, Monkey Man Production. Cheers from London, Ontario, and a fellow creator. Hey, London, Ontario. I actually live in Windsor, Ontario, so London is not too far from me. Monkey Man Productions. I actually like London a lot. I've been lucky enough to be able to attend a lot of Masonic functions in London. And you know what? London is not too far for you to come down to Windsor and check out some of the awesome productions happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple. In the meantime, if you would be so kind as to hit like and subscribe, I really appreciate it. Monkey Man Productions, what do you create? What's your channel all about? I'd love to know. Sway with the Game. Do Freemasons make a good club sandwich? We make the best club sandwiches. That's why you should join. India, this time, good evening. Good evening, Sharma. Welcome. Great to see you back this evening for you. I hope that you are doing well. I've actually talked about Freemasonry in India a few times. It's a really interesting subject. Cool. Did you ever attend the Windsor Masonic Temple or pass by or see it? Hello, Cameron Allison. I'm back. What a day thus far. No worries. I'm sure that you're absolutely swamped. So I appreciate you being here anytime you can. Warrior Cat Fan Club. I do not know what you mean. I'm in the weed community for this channel. I do food and product reviews on my second channel. Okay, very cool. And I drove past it, actually. That is awesome. Look, you can always get in touch with me through this email address. If you're ever passing by and you want to take a tour or check it out, let me know. How do I join and be a good part of my community? Well, that's the question. So the standard answer, Sway with the Game, is to be one, ask one. Basically, what you have to do to start is find the Masonic community that is, or Masonic lodge or Masonic building that is closest to you, wherever it is that you may live. And you get in touch with them and you explain you're interested in joining and why, and then they'll talk to you about it. So that really is at the start. Beyond that, to join the fraternity side of Freemasonry, you have to be a man, you have to be over the age of, depends where you're from. In Ontario, you have to be over 21. In most places in the States, you have to be over 18. And you have to believe in a supreme being. But you could be of the Christian faith, the Muslim faith, the Jewish faith, the Hindu faith, Wiccan faith, First Nations, Hindu. That would all be, you could join with any of those kind of beliefs, or even no religion, but just spiritual. And you could still join. You could have, spiritual belief, but not a particular religion. That would count. Believing in a higher power, but not specifically, would constitute a supreme being, so that would be fine. Welcome, Dad. Welcome back. Dijari Sharma, U.S. market today's index green, long-term hold very half at profit, short-term selling then loss. Markets go up, go down all the time. It's kind of one of those things, right? You kind of got to just run with it. Although I've talked a lot on this channel about the importance of paying attention to the economy and why, as Freemasons and leaders in a lodge, we need to take the time to care about our Masonic buildings. We need to care about our Masonic buildings and the economy of the communities in which those buildings are located. If the stock market is crashing, people may have less money, which means they have less time to dedicate to Freemasonry because they need to spend more time working, trying to get that money back. Lodge investments may go down. There's lots of different reasons why it's so important to care about the economy from the ability of how will it affect Freemasonry, because it's going to affect Freemasonry. I agree, Sway, with the game. I love Masonic buildings. One of the things I've talked about a lot on this channel, as well as on my Medium written stories, is preservation of Masonic built architecture and why it's so important that we preserve our Masonic buildings, whether it be the grand buildings like Detroit, Windsor, or the smaller buildings that kind of surround smaller towns and cities or exist within. We need to preserve and protect them all because they're so important and they matter so much. So yeah, it's pretty vital. Welcome, though. If you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That helps out majorly. Have you ever been to Fort? I have not, sadly, but I did interview a Mason named Daryl Babcock, who was an architect who has been, and actually talked about Fort Edmonton Park in Edmonton, Alberta, and the lodges there. He did a great video about those buildings, which I featured on my channel. So if you afterwards search Daryl Babcock and Scoring Comments Promotions, he should pop up. So I know about it. I know how incredible it is. And yeah, that is awesome. So Sway with the game. Again, thank you so much for being here. As always, to everybody who's joining us, hit like, hit subscribe. Beginner Security. Welcome, Beginner Security. Thank you so much for being here. Please hit like and subscribe. So Beginner Security, I will get to you in 1 second. Dad, Sway with the game. So I would say higher power constitutes a supreme being. I've known many Masons who describe themselves as believing in a higher power, which would be equivalent to supreme being, in my opinion, and based on all the lodges I've been to. So can you say what being a Mason is? So being a Mason, and when I speak, I'm speaking specifically about Freemason. There is Mason in the sense of a stonemason, Beginner Security, which is somebody who builds things out of stone or shapes stone to build houses, whatever it is. That's stonemason. To be a Freemason is basically to be a member of a fraternity, primarily a fraternity or a social group. And like any fraternity or social group, the purpose is to create bonds between its members through shared experiences, as well as to create, take those bonds and then create a better world. Freemasonry evolved from Masonic stonemason guilds of the Middle Ages, but then in 1717 was formed to create basically a social group. We take a lot of symbolism and kind of ritual ideas from stonemasonry tools and stonemasonry ideas, but we apply them metaphorically to our morals. Beginner Security, it does not surprise me when you say the Philippines. Freemasonry is very popular in the Philippines and amongst the Filipino community. I've been honored and lucky enough to know several Filipino Masons, including several worshipful masters or leaders of Masonic lodges have been Filipino, and there are many lodges in North America which are comprised, majority membership is Filipino. So It does not surprise me at all, beginner security, when you say that. I hope that that answered your question, beginner security. Let me know if it did or if it didn't, or if you want more info, I can try to answer it better. As always, though, in the meantime, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Let me know how you guys are doing and what it is that you want to chat about. I do these streams every Monday through Friday. We talk about Freemasonry. Usually, the first hour is me just talking about anything, answering questions from the chat. And then the second hour, I try to give more specific topics, such as today, I want to talk about events happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple coming up, as well as Freemasonry in China. I sub to the channel and hit the like. Truly appreciated. Thank you so much. I'm actually one subscription away from 2,050 subscribers. So anybody watching this who hasn't done so yet, please hit subscribe. It would be truly appreciated. The more people liking, subscribing, the better it is. And it allows me to talk about my favorite thing in the world, Freemasonry. It's very interesting, again, when we talk about, what does it mean to be a Freemason, that is actually, it's really interesting. There was a good friend of mine and a very talented brother, past Grand Master of Washington State, Cameron Bailey, and he's great because his name is Cameron. He actually just wrote an article asking the question, like, what is Masonic? Because there's simple answers, but then it gets pretty complicated once you start talking about appendant bodies and concordant bodies and different groups and all that stuff. It starts to get pretty complex and pretty complicated, but if it was simple, anybody could do it. But thank you everybody for joining. It's great to have some new people, as always, in the chat. I truly appreciate it. I always am curious also if you can put in the chat how you came across our stream. Was it through, were you searching for Freemasonry? Do you search, sometimes people search things like secret societies or Freemasonry or even occultism, and then YouTube recommends this stream. Did it just pop up on your feed? I always want to know how people find it because it's very, very helpful to me to know where to focus my resources. Do you follow us on social media, etc., etc., etc.? I was scrolling through the live and this popped up. Well, I very much appreciate YouTube for having this pop up or sharing this. Truly, truly appreciated. So let's give it, as I said, the first half hour to hour. I just wait for people to join, jump in the chat, say hello, ask any questions they may have about Freemasonry. I've been a Freemason since 2007. Obviously, all opinions are my own, but I like to think, based on my very active Masonic career, I can at least provide, hopefully, some advice that can help you. If you are a Freemason, maybe help you in your Masonic career. If you're not a Freemason, but you have opinions on, or you're not a Freemason, but you have opinions on the craft, positive, negative, neutral, I'd love to hear those as well. Don't apologize, Allison. I just appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. It is truly appreciated. I was scrolling, Dad says, beginner security in Manitoba, there are a lot of Filipino Freemasons in Manitoba, as in Windsor, as in Toronto, as just throughout North America. So I think that's a really cool feature of the craft. In fact, Freemason is probably more popular and open in the Philippines than almost anywhere else in the world. Why the interest in China? So primarily, first, I do just think it's an interesting topic in general because of the way it kind of developed there, which was unique compared to a lot of other places, but also it is in the news, or China's in the news, right? With the tariffs, Trump saying he's going to put a 104% tariff on China, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that makes it interesting and worth exploring. I do try sometimes to follow what's happening on, trending topics on Twitter or all that jazz in order to, pick my topics. Having said that, though, spirit of justice, I'm always looking for people to provide me with different ideas. So if there's any topics you would like to see discussed, please let me know what they are. And I'd love to do my best to, I mean, if it's a topic I know a lot about, then great. If it's a topic I know very little about, you know what, that's great too, because it'll give me an excuse to research and learn something new. And as we know, when it comes to Freemasonry, we should always be trying our best to have a daily advancement in Masonic knowledge. Interesting, 7 votes. Ever attended a theater production, music event at the Windsor Masonic Temple or other events? Yes, 29%. No, 43%. Plan to 20. Oh, looks like 8 votes in a second. We're still 8 votes. So 4 no, 2 yes, 2 plan to. I love the plan to answers, by the way. If you're hitting plan to, thank you so much. I plan to welcome you if you plan to attend. And thank you to all the newer people we have on the stream. It's always wonderful to see new audience members join the stream and join the Square and Compass Promotions family. So please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know, again, what it is that you want to chat about. We'll do that for the first, hour or so, give or take, and then we switch over to more specific topics. Welcome. If you're just joining us, please jump in the chat, say hello, please hit like and subscribe. Please answer our poll question. Do you plan to, or have you attended productions or events at the Windsor Masonic Temple? China has been mentioned as interfering in Canada's upcoming election. Yeah, I think they always get mentioned every year. Election interference seems to be a pretty popular or pretty common, topic. Whether to what extent it actually is a legitimate concern, I have no idea, but it does pop up. The simulation hypothesis. Well, that could be a fun question to just ask on a stream one day or in a poll. Do you believe we exist within a simulation? I do, for whatever it's worth, but I also think it doesn't matter, because once you accept the possibility of a simulation, you have to accept the possibility that anything is a simulation. So even if we made it out of the first round of the simulation, would we then make it out of the second, or the third or the fourth? Ever attended a theater production? We had 9 votes. Looks like 4 no, 3 yeses, and 2 plan tos. That was always interesting. Friend of the channel, brother out of Eastern Europe, wrote an article or did an interview, which I covered on my Medium page, where he talked about Masonic symbolism that exists in movies and TV shows, including The Matrix. I always thought my biggest problem with The Matrix was, in The Matrix, if they're saying, okay, the real world, quote unquote, the world that we live in is a simulation, but the world that Neo wakes up in is real, it's like, how do you know? If the original simulated world felt as real as the non-simulated world, how do you know which is really the simulation and which is reality? And how do you know there isn't a third level of the simulation or a fourth level of the simulation, right? Like, you would never have any way of knowing what is or isn't real in the universe of The Matrix. They just kind of assume the less, I think, the more miserable reality is the real one, which I guess the logic of that is, if you're going to create a simulated reality, why would you make it miserable? So you can kind of assume the real world is the one where is the most miserable, I guess, but I don't know if I buy that argument too much. I have heard of the Mandela effect. I've heard it a few times. I think we actually talked about the Mandela effect on a stream once. There's this movie, Shazam versus Kazam, and whether Sinbad or Shaquille O'Neal played the genie. So yes, I have heard of the Mandela effect. Warrior Cat Fan Club, I'm back. Thank you for being back. I truly appreciate it. And thank you for joining the stream. It's great to have some new audience members come along. As always, anybody who's just joining us, please hit like and subscribe. I've looked into Freemasonry before. Yes, Bernstein Bears is another one. I've looked into Freemasonry before, found it interesting. I always like what I heard about them. I'm definitely into learning more about it. That is awesome. We are glad that you're into learning more about it. If there are any other questions you have in specific, I mean, I can talk in generalities about it, but if there's maybe some specific things that you've looked into and liked and heard that you want me to kind of address, I'd be happy to do that as well. Douglas Marks is on the stream. Hey everyone, all is well. That is great. I'm glad that all is well. I am doing well also. So thank you so much, Douglas Marks, for being here. It's great to have you back on the stream. Please hit the like button, please hit that subscribe button, etc., etc. Answer the poll question, and let me know how it's going. As always, once we switch over from the first hour to the second hour, I tend to pick more specific topics. In this case, I was thinking about Freemasonry in China, as well as potentially talk about what is happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple's ballroom through Temple Blooms, some theater productions that we have in the coming months, or that they have in the coming months, I should say. I have a question for you. Do you think people deserve a second chance? So that's a tough philosophical question. I mean, and who is giving, or who is giving the second chance and to whom is a big part of it. I mean, as a rule, I would say yes. People deserve a second chance. But you can't compel anybody to give anybody a second chance. So what I mean by that is, like, if, I don't know, you're in a relationship and somebody, the other side cheats on you, whether or not the other side who cheated deserves a second chance, right? That's not up to me to decide. That's up to the person in the relationship who, was cheated on to decide. So everybody has to decide for themselves. What I'd say is everybody, and this is going to sound weird, everybody deserves to be forgotten. So what that means is, if you're in a relationship, somebody cheats, you end the relationship, you go your own separate way, right? That person who cheated, the other person shouldn't spend all their time sitting thinking about it and thinking about how they were wronged and hurt by it. They should, forget about the other person, wish them well, and move on with their own lives. Holding grudges, I think, doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help the person who committed the offense, nor does it help the person holding the grudge. So you kind of forget, you wish the person well, and you move on with your own life. And obviously, the more significant the hurt is or the harm is, the harder it's going to be to do that. But you don't have to necessarily give them a second chance yourself, or nobody has to give anybody a second chance. Nobody has to do anything. But I definitely think the person who did the hurt, holding a grudge and remembering forever is not going to help, especially if they've been through, if it was a criminal act of some sort and they've gone to jail and they've served their sentence. At a certain point, you kind of have to, as much as you can, let things go. Though it's easy to say when you led a life such as mine, where it's been relatively wonderful, and I've never had to experience any, significant betrayals or harm or anything like that. I've been very lucky in that sense. So Harry, everyone deserves a second chance. We all make mistakes. I mean, that's an interesting point for Masonry too. Somebody does something that harms the lodge or brings disrepute to the lodge. Do you give them a second chance? Or somebody commits a crime but then wants to join Freemasonry, let's say after getting out of jail. Do you give him a second chance and let him join the lodge? Um, and there's actually a lot of talk of that right now happening in Freemasonry as to whether or not to require criminal record checks and background checks before an applicant joins a lodge. So that's a really interesting question. Some jurisdictions do require background checks, some don't, or criminal record checks. I personally am fine with it so long as that doesn't become predeterminative. So what I mean by that is, if you commit a crime and the lodge discovers that when you're applying to join, that shouldn't automatically disable you from joining the lodge, but it should be something that the lodge discusses with you. What happened? How have you changed? How have you learned from it? That type of thing. It's also why, I believe more information the better. I think lodges should be asking for criminal record checks as well as medical records, medical check, as well as credit check. I think the more information you have about a candidate, the better informed you are. We can't blackball people from life. That is very, very true, Spirit. We cannot blackball people from life. And part of that means providing a second chance on a societal level instead of just the individual level. Even Monopoly has a get out of jail free card. That is true. Even Monopoly has a get out of jail free card. Though normally, I've known a few people in my professional working days, working as a probation officer and then working in a jail, who very much wished that the get out of jail free card existed. I can tell you that. So, but that's a whole other story. But I know like this issue just popped up in Illinois, where they were asking the question about lodges performing criminal record checks. Ultimately, to my knowledge, it failed at Grand Lodge. So there was a motion to require all lodges in Illinois to perform background checks on candidates. That motion failed, so it's not required, but they do have resources. So if lodges want to perform background checks or record checks on candidates, there's resources to help them do that. So, I'm a big believer in the more information you have, the better. Nothing, in my opinion, should be automatically disqualifying, but everything should be known and then discussed, and then the lodge can make the best decision they can make on all the information. But a big part of that is being able to ask and know the answers to it. Even medical stuff, because I know it sounds weird to say, but if you're joining a lodge and you have problems sitting for a long period of time due to maybe you have trouble with your back or your legs or whatever it is, so you can't sit for long periods of time, the lodge should know that, because that way the worshipful master can maybe try to make the meetings a little bit shorter so you're not uncomfortable, or can maybe get a special chair, purchase a special chair in lodge for that Mason, or just cushions or something so he's more comfortable during the meeting, or even he'll just know in advance, okay, every half hour this particular Mason has to stand up and walk around so as not to affect his for pain management. And if he knows that, he's not going to call it out in lodge or it's not going to make him uncomfortable, right? Or how will it affect him going through the degree if he can't stand for longer than, let's say, 30 seconds at a time. Well, in a first degree, you might be standing for 3, 4, 5 minutes. Do we have to have a chair that we can have next to him to help him sit if necessary, right? So medical stuff matters. And then credit stuff, if he has trouble managing his credit, is he going to be able to pay his dues? Do we have to keep that in mind? All that stuff matters. So the more information you have, I truly, truly believe the better the application process will be. Do you know cryptocurrency could bring economic freedom to developing countries? It could. It could also, Courtney, bring a lot of challenges to developing countries. And so I think cryptocurrency, I have no issue with cryptocurrency as like a concept. I don't understand people who do. It seems to make perfect sense to me conceptually, but like everything else, it's not just about the concept, it's about the execution and the practice, and that's where I think the challenge comes from. If you're just joining us, please hit like, please hit subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. The more people we have liking and subscribing, the better it is for the stream. Ever attended a theater production or music event at the Windsor Masonic Temple? 10 votes, 4 yes, 4 no, 2 plan to. And to the 2 people who said plan to, if you plan to attend, I plan to welcome you and greet you. So thank you so much for, as always, or thank you so much for planning to attend. It's a beautiful building, and I'd love to see you there. Not only is it a beautiful building, but it has some absolutely amazing events coming up, which I can't wait to share. I shared them on the previous stream, but I'll share them again on this one just because they're going to be an absolute blast. And if you're just joining us, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know what you want to talk about. I do these streams every Monday through Friday, and we chat about Freemasonry. So if you have any opinions on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I would love to hear it. A lot of people maybe have some more negative views or misconceptions about Freemasonry, and maybe I can try to answer those questions as best as I can. It's worth $70 at the moment, so I've lost $5, but that's okay. I was actually wrong though. It wasn't 70, it was actually 70, so I basically broken even. I think it's like 67. So lost $3, but that's okay. That's okay. I can live with losing $3. Though, like I said, my plan for the cryptocurrency is to keep it for the next 5 years and not touch it. I'm just curious after 5 years what's going to happen to it. So I'm curious. I will let you guys know what happens to it. But yeah, the concept of it never seemed that strange to me, right? Most currencies digital nowadays anyways, right? I think if I recall correctly, a bank is required to have 10% liquidity, and that's it. So that means if I put $100 into a bank, like deposit $100 into a bank, $10 is kept in the bank. The other 90, even though it shows that it's in my bank account, that other 90 is actually loaned out to other people for business loans or credit cards or whatever it is. And the only actual physical cash they have on hand of that 100 I deposited is $10. So like, is it really that different? I know there's certain differences. There's deposit insurance, there's things of that nature, but I'm not saying there aren't risks to cryptocurrency, but the general principle, I don't get why people, I don't understand the people who seem to think cryptocurrency is the answer and solution to every problem, because it's definitely not. Nor do I understand the people who think of cryptocurrency as being some type of like major scam. Some cryptocurrencies are scam, but when they sold tulips back in the day, that was a scam too, right? The Dutch tulip collapse or whatever it was. So I don't know. But welcome if you're just joining us. As always, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing, and let me know what it is that you want to talk about. I do these streams every Monday through Friday. We chat about Freemasonry. So positive, negative, neutral. If you have thoughts on Freemasonry, please let me know what they are. And usually about an hour in, I switch to talking about my main topic or topics today. Potentially events taking place at the Windsor Masonic Temple, Temple Blooms, as well as potentially Freemasonry in China. There's some really interesting things I've read about it, which makes me think it's worth exploring, including potentially a link between Freemasonry and the opium trade between China and Britain. One of my favorite movies, From Hell, which talks about Freemasonry quite extensively. The lead character, Johnny Depp's character, is addicted to opium in that movie. So another interesting little connection. Ever attend a theater production, music events, or other events at the Windsor Masonic Temple? Yes, 40%, no, 40% plan to 20%. So 4, 4, and 2. And thank you to everybody who's jumped on the stream so far, including, as always, our new audience members. Truly appreciate you being here. It's always fun. We get new people joining the chat, saying hello. As well as, of course, our returning, audience. Does Masonry entail intellectual discussion surrounding Masonic topics? I mean, it can. It just depends, right? I mean, sometimes there's more intellectual or philosophical discussions. Sometimes there's more practical discussions, like how much money is in the bank, how is our building doing, what are we scheduling for events, what's the menu going to be. So it can be a combination of both of those things. And so, yeah, but there can be intellectual or philosophical discussions or a combination of both of those types of discussions surrounding Freemasonry, which I think is one of the fun things about Freemasonry, the ability to discuss many different topics at the same time, or discuss many different topics in many different ways, some more practical, some more intellectual, some more philosophical, some a combination of all of the above. I also have just discovered finally this new feature called Take a Break. I'm going to see if that works because I might have to run to the washroom in a second. Let's see if this new feature works for me. If it doesn't, and that's okay too. The way I like to put it is Freemasonry shows you the tools, but you actually have to pick them up and use them yourself. That's a very good way to put it. And yeah, I agree. I've heard that described to me many times in the past. So I agree. I think that's a really good way to describe it, Courtney. Let's see if this works. So it says on my thing here, break has started. I don't know if it has or not. Dark Pixel is back. Dark Pixel, hello. I hope that your trip went well. Bong, good afternoon, and God bless everyone from West Kentucky. Welcome back, Bong. It is great to see you here once again. I hope that you are doing well. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm in Spain. Yes, you're going to Madrid, if I recall correctly. So I hope Spain is going well for you. I hear it's an absolutely beautiful place. Ever attended a theater production or other event at the Windsor Masonic Temple? Yes, 45%, which is awesome. Yes is in the lead. No, 36%, plan to 18%. Once again, if you plan to, I plan to welcome you. So it's wonderful to hear. Bong, Hermosa, España. So we got a few different people, from Spain speaking Spanish, which is awesome. Today's topics, I think, will be Freemasonry or Masonic, or not, sorry, just events or productions at the Windsor Masonic Temple, what's coming up. You can always fly here, as well as potentially Freemasonry in China. I do have a Scottish Rite meeting tonight, which I'm very excited about. I always am, so that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, it should be a really good time. Please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, answer our poll question, and let me know what it is that you want to talk about. I usually wait, like I said, about an hour to give it a chance for people to join before we start on the main topics. I agree. I mean, I say I agree. I've never actually been to Spain, sadly. I'd love to, but every picture I've seen, Spain looks absolutely beautiful. So I would love the opportunity to visit there and to specifically visit Masonic lodges and Masonic buildings in Spain. Might be worth maybe even doing a live stream one day talking about Freemasonry in Spain, because honestly, it is something I sadly know very, very little about. Dark Pixel, if you ever get the chance to visit or see a Masonic building in Spain, see this for encompasses, I hope that you will, you know, reach out or take a picture or something or let the stream know, because I would love to learn more about Freemasonry in Spain. I don't even know what the name of the Grand Lodge in Spain is. Let me check. Freemasonry in Spain. The current regular Grand Lodge, being the symbolic Grand Lodge of Spain, established in 1980 after the end of the Francois dictatorship. Freemasonry in Spain is first recorded in 1728 in an English lodge. Interesting. I understand Spain. I understand. Excuse me. Spain is primarily a Catholic country, so I think it is. So I don't know if that might cause some issues, though I could be wrong. Spirit going to try Scottish once I make it to third degree. That's yeah, I'm Scottish, right? 18th degree. In the States, I think it's a little bit different in that you get all your degrees from fourth, excuse me, to 32nd, all in kind of one weekend. Whereas here it's divided up amongst 3 weekends, um, throughout the year. But that is awesome. I do love um, Scottish Rite, so good for you. More Masonic lodges in Portugal. Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch, right? But Portugal is a separate country. Let's see. Again, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Looks like they follow the Grand Orient of France. There's a Portuguese Museum of Freemasonry, which is really incredible. Um, Again, just going by Wikipedia, so this is not some fancy, excellent research. This is just looking what I've been able to find. The first known Freemasons in Portugal were Swiss John Cousteau. I didn't know that. And two other Portuguese members of his lodge were arrested by the Portuguese Inquisition and questioned under torture in the 1740s. Pointed to 1728 as the year of the first lodge. That would make a really interesting podcast discussion. The Grand Orient of Lustinia, founded in 1802, is the oldest Masonic obedience in Portugal, recognized by the Grand Orient of France, and also belongs to CLIPSAS, Centre de Liaison d'Information de Puissance Maçonnique, Signataire de l'Appel de Strasbourg. Please forgive me for what I'm sure was horrendous pronunciation there. International Masonic organization that served as the primary coordinating body for the liberal and dogmatic Freemasonry worldwide, established in 1961. Interesting. This would be a really fun thing to do, like a full podcast on. See if I could find somebody who'd be willing to have that discussion. As always, if you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, answer our poll question, and let me know how you are doing. I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm going to have a very fun evening at the Masonic Lodge talking about, we got a Scottish Rite degree, Scottish Rite unions, which are always a blast, followed by a few more things. So yeah, I've got an official visit tomorrow night, so that's going to be fun. I have a bingo I'm helping with on Thursday, so we may have to or not cancel, but really shorten our live stream. But we shall see. They have a few Knights Templar castles in, well, but those would be like original Knights Templar castles as well, right? So I would absolutely love to check those out. The biggest lesson, well, I mean, I'm not always successful at actually applying those lessons, which is one of the big problems. I do try my best. Temperance, though, I would say. Temperance is one of those lessons that I've been lucky enough to learn, to try to apply. I don't always succeed, but it's very easy to become distempered, if that's the best word for it. Both in times of when things are going well, and in times when things are going not so well, and maintaining temperance in both situations is very important to a successful Masonic career, as well as probably just a successful life in general. I would say Scottish is more common in Canada. I think Scottish Rite is more common in North America in general. I don't have any stats about membership wise, but certainly where I'm from in Windsor, number of membership, Scottish Rite is bigger than York Rite. Dark Pixel, I don't see what you said there. I'm not sure why. I just see your name pop up, but still, we all hope that Spain and Madrid are treating you well, and I'd love one day to get there. 12 votes. Ever attended a theater production or music event at the Windsor Masonic Temple? 6 people saying yes. Looks like 4 saying no, and 2 saying plan to. Just used spacebar. I mean, I've done stuff like that all the time, don't get me wrong. So there's many streams of me with messed up chats and all that type of stuff. I'm just getting ready to pull up. Well, whatever happened, Dark Pixel, it's good to have you back on the stream as always. Let's give it, let's say 5 more minutes. Let's see who else joins us. If you're just joining us, especially if you're new to the stream, I hope you'll take a moment to jump in the chat and say hello. And let me know where you're from and what it is you want to talk about as it relates to Freemasonry. Then maybe we'll switch over and start talking about our specific topic today, or topics, I should say. Usually, as I was saying, the first hour is just, I didn't want to say just, but is me hanging out, answering questions as they pop up in the chat. And then the second hour is usually more related to specific topics, specific discussions. I do these streams every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I would say the ritual is secret. I mean, the modes of recognition are what is certainly most secret. I mean, I would never myself kind of talk about the ritual form or format. Different people have different rules about that. But in like the general idea of what the lessons impart, or kind of what the overarching topics are, that type of stuff I'll talk about. But I wouldn't go into specifics, I should say, about the ritual, if that makes any sense. And as always, if you are just joining us, please hit like, please hit subscribe. We do these streams every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about Freemasonry. So if you have any thoughts on it or have any questions, please jump in the chat and ask them before we go on to our main topics of the day. 12 votes still, 6 yes. Looks like 4 no and 2 plan tos. And if you're new to the stream and never been on before, Indeed, never talk about what goes on in lodge. Well, I think, look, you can talk about some of what goes on in lodge. I've never been the type of person who believes it has to be kept completely confidential. So, for example, on this stream, I've talked about what a business meeting looks like, minutes, accounts, um, correspondence. What are some of the things we discuss? Who's sick? Who's not sick? Who needs help? Um, but I would never talk about the modes of recognition, or certainly like anything, any specific information that if I were to meet somebody else that wasn't a Mason, that they could use to pretend to be a Mason. That is kind of how I decide what I'm going to discuss and not discuss. But honestly, every Mason makes that decision for themselves, and every Mason has different, for better or worse, will set a different standard. Because human nature is such, right? If it was a simple answer, everybody would know what to do, and life would be very boring as a consequence. So as always, if you are just joining us, please hit that like button and subscribe button. Let's give it 4 more minutes, and then let us jump on. I just tell people to see for themselves. That's a really good answer. The issue with that as an answer is obviously, if they can't join, or, again, if it becomes one of those situations of they have concerns about something they've read about Freemasonry and they want an answer, and, if you say just see for yourself, are they going to join? It's like, it's a tough balance to act, even putting aside, or tough balance to strike, even putting aside kind of the idea of the secrets, right? Like if somebody's interested in joining Freemasonry and you reveal too much to them about what Freemasonry is, does that limit the mystique and the mystery of the craft, and are they then less likely to want to join? But by the same token, if you don't reveal enough, are they going to be too nervous and scared and not want to join? So I think almost every Freemason struggles with this idea of how much is too much, not only from a secrets perspective, but just from a advertising, for lack of a better term, or promotional perspective. How much is too much in terms of giving away what happens in a lodge? Because again, you give away too much, do you lose the mystique of the craft, and are people less likely to be interested to join? You give away too little, especially if they've fallen in the trap of conspiracy theorists. Are they going to believe kind of more the negative side of what they've heard online, or et cetera, and then not want to join? So it's a tough balance, It reminds me of one of these memes where it was somebody arguing, and one guy said, I'm interested in learning more about Freemasonry, and someone else says, to be one, ask one. And then the person says, I just did. And the other person just keeps responding, to be one, ask one. Right? Because it's like, if you did ask one, then you kind of got to expect them to give you something. If I made any sense at all with that, which is very possible I did not. If you're just joining us, as always, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Maybe what I will do is, in a second, I will start with to be one, don't ask me. That should be that should have been the motto. It would have saved a lot of brothers a lot of time, trying to answer questions that either they don't know themselves, or that they just are too busy to answer because they got to get to work or whatever it is. So, to be one, DAM, don't ask me. I'm sure there are many brothers who wished, or who still wish that was the actual motto, as opposed to be one, ask one, because if nothing else, it got them stuck in many conversations on elevators when they were desperate to get to work, or did not want to talk about Freemasonry at the time. Though I mean, having said that, I've used myself, and I know many people who've used the to be one, ask one approach or, statement. Well, I mean, supposedly, Courtney, that's what they say. Whether that's true or not, I don't know because I've never been part of the York Rite. Um, I've never been a Shriner, but I've been active in Shrine, or attended Shrine dinners quite frequently. But um, I mean, certainly Scottish Rite models itself as being a esoteric, almost like a college of Freemasonry is a term you hear used an awful lot. Certainly, Albert Pike is probably one who would have viewed it as being such. But it's tough for me to say for sure because I've never been, like I said, I've never been part of the York Rite. But I would tell you from my experience, certainly there's more esoteric knowledge in Scottish Rite in the Valley of Windsor and in Canada than there is in emulation ritual first 3 degrees, in my experience. But again, you also have to take into account that in the States you have Preston Webb, which is a different type of ritual. Sometimes it's called York ritual. Um, and so, yeah, I do. So, whether or not there is more esoteric knowledge in Scottish Rite than in York Rite, um, I'm talking about the rites in particular, not the Scottish Rite, even the first 3 degrees, but Scottish Rite as being a separate appendant entity going from fourth degree to 32nd. I know Louisiana has a Scottish Rite first 3 degrees, etc., etc. Certainly, it at least styles itself as being a more esoteric, knowledge-based rite than, say, York, for whatever side of it is. Um, but that, again, that's speaking more to certainly on Ontario Masonic experience, where after you get your first degree, your first 3 degrees, you have to decide whether you want to go to York Rite or Scottish Rite. And if you are just joining us, as always, thank you so much for being here. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Answer the poll question if you can. Ever attended a theater event, music event, or any other type of event at the Windsor Masonic Temple? Let me know how you're doing and what it is you want to talk about. I am going to try something here one more time. I do have to take a quick break. This live streaming thing, sooner or later, you need to take a break to go to the washroom. But let me just try. I'm trying to figure out how to work this new take a break feature, and so far it's been a challenge. If not, if it doesn't work, I have Mason the Moose here to keep you guys. He is my co-host. He keeps you guys in line while I take my break. I just think either way, just surrounding yourself by great men is great. I agree. I think, look, I've known a lot of incredible York Rite Masons, a lot of incredible Scottish Rite Masons, a lot of incredible Shriners, a lot of incredible all of the above. So certainly, it kind of depends on you, who's around you, what you're joining, and yeah, you kind of have to make the decision for yourself. But there's a lot of great men in both the Scottish Rite, the York Rite appendant bodies, as well as the different craft lodge rituals. All right, so let's see if this works. I'm going to hit the take a break button. Let's see how this works. The welcome, if you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing and what it is that you want to chat about. We talk about Freemasonry every Monday through Friday, and then we also both answering questions from the chat as well as talking about specific topics. So when I get back, well, thank you, Courtney, but thank you as always for your questions or your comments. I agree with the last couple comments you made. It is all about surrounding yourself with great men, either way you go. All right, I'm going to hit the take a break. I'm going to leave my good friend Mason the Moose here to watch you guys, make sure you don't cause trouble. I'm going to do this for 3, and let's see. I'll be back in a moment. Be good for the moose. I made it back. I hope everybody is doing well and didn't mind me taking that little break. As always, with these streams, every now and then you need a break. Do you think Scottish Rite has opened the fraternity a lot more for you? Well, certainly it's added a lot to my fraternal experience. Joining like the more you do in Freemasonry, the more it will open up the fraternity for you, whether it's joining York Rite, Scottish Rite, the Shrine, like whatever it might be, right? So I'm always I consider myself very lucky and very honored to be a part of Scottish Rite. And again, but even if I didn't join Scottish Rite, I mean, if I joined the temple board of the building, or if I join a committee to plan an event, all that stuff will open up the fraternity for me a lot as well. And so all of that stuff matters and is important, right? And so there are a million ways to have the fraternity open up for you, reveal more of itself to you, for lack of a better term. And so, Scottish Rite is kind of one of the ways I chose to do that, but it's certainly not the only way. And honestly, I would say the best way to have the fraternity, quote unquote, open up for you, for lack of a better term, is travel and visitation. You kind of need that travel and you need that visitation in order to create a successful Masonic experience and to get as much from the craft as you possibly can, in my humble opinion. So I did want to mention once again, one more time, we talked about this on my previous stream, the importance of, or what is happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple at the Temple Blooms Ballroom, 986 Olette Avenue, what's happening in the coming days, weeks, and months. And I would encourage anybody, if you can, even if you got to travel for it, I promise you it's worth the travel. So this Friday, April 11th at 7 p.m., Bloomsbury House Stage Productions is inviting you to an evening of new monologues by McCarn Clowhy from the play He's Actually a Nice Guy. It's one night only, it's free, but donations help pay local artists. Join Bloomsbury House and several of Windsor's finest actors as they present a staged readings of McCarn Clowhy's new play, He's Actually a Nice Guy, with an author Q&A. McCarn is an accomplished writer and story editor for TV and film, including major projects like Law and Order SVU. Entry is by donation, but it's a great opportunity for artists and students. On April 25th, there is a 19-plus show, $20 Battle of the Babes Part 6. That is taking place, again, April 25th, $20, 19 plus, April 25th at 8 p.m. There is a famous CBS television and radio show, My Friend Irma. That is taking place April 26th at 2 p.m., April 26th at 7 p.m., and April 27th at 2 p.m. Take a walk back in time and join the temple as it celebrates or recreates the classic radio sitcom My Friend Irma. The voice actors and live sound effects crew will keep the audience laughing as Temple Blooms brings this much-loved radio sitcom to life, presenting 2 episodes, Jane and Irma Meet and Rent Money are Rent Money. So if you're a big fan of historical radio plays and radio productions, you can check that out. Yeah, I guess it premiered on CBS Radio on April 11, 1947 and ran until August 23rd, 1953. There's the Windsor Community Choir presenting All That Glitters, a 50th anniversary celebration. Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. Tickets are $40 for adults. Celebrate half a century of harmony, friendship, and unforgettable music with the Windsor Community Choir at the 50th anniversary celebration, All That Glitters. Enjoy a heartwarming evening featuring choir favorites from across the decades, special guest performances, and stories from our rich community history. Whether you've sung with the choir, cheered the choir on, or simply love great music, this celebration is for you. And that is May 3rd, Saturday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. There's Venus Envy. The House of Venus returns to Windsor one night only, Friday, May 16th. Doors open at 7 p.m. Event at 8 p.m. You can also get early bird tickets. And then there is also 2 productions happening over the summer, including A Few Good Men of the famous You Can't Handle the Truth of Jack Nicholson. If you want to learn more, you can actually go to this link, find more information about the dates and times. It's one of those things where, look, Windsor, London, Ontario, if you live in Detroit even, it's not terribly far. Most people, when they think of big plays, productions, shows, they tend to think of the casino, which has some great stuff. But so does the Windsor Masonic Temple and Temple ballrooms. And so I hope that you guys will keep them in mind. If you haven't done so yet, answer our poll question. Ever attended a theater production or music production, etc., at the Windsor Masonic Temple? I was happy to see more yeses than nos. That made me very happy. And if you're just joining us, hit that like button. Subscribe button. We are 1 subscription away from 2,050 subscribers. So that would be great to see. Oh, 13 votes. Let's see what we're at. 13 votes. Yes, 46%. So I think that'd be 6. No, 38%. So I think that'd be 5. Plan to 15%. Now, I did want to mention and talk about Freemasonry in China, again, because China is finding itself in the news with apparently a presidential plan in the States to tariff them at 104%. We'll see how that goes. Although it also seems, at least on the positives, that the market has recovered. Again, I've said a million times, you cannot separate the success of a Masonic building from the success of the community, or the success of Freemasonry from the success of the communities in which it's located, nor from the success of the membership, and that includes financial and economic success. If everybody is broke or scrambling to make money, they're not going to dedicate themselves to Freemasonry the way they could otherwise. Crude oil prices, I'm just looking at the Twitter polls here, or Twitter trending, or X trending. China says it will not bow to Trump's latest tariff threats of 50% in addition to tariffs that will go into effect on April 9th. This means Trump's plan to increase Chinese tariffs to 104%. Remember, 70% of the products you buy on Amazon are sourced from China. That's true for the States, but I'm assuming that stat is also true for Canada, or at least almost the same for Canada. That is really cool. I did not know that John Elway of the Denver Broncos is a Mason. If he ever finds this stream, I hope he will jump in the chat and say hello. But very cool piece of information. Thank you, Courtney. Some people are being pretty positive about this. Trump will be slapping 104% tariff on China. China effed around, and now they're about to find out. America first, according to one person on X. Whereas the more negative side of it, Donald Trump just placed an additional 50% tariff on China, raising the overall tariff rate to 104%. This is nuts. Trump is going to bankrupt a lot of Americans who send their products abroad. This is hurting America. According to the press secretary, it was a mistake for China to retaliate. When America is punched, President Trump punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight. If China reaches out to make a deal, he will be incredibly gracious. A full-blown trade war has officially started. I mean, so Scottish Rite. That's the exclusive group I'm a member of. Appendant body, I should say, after my first 3 degrees. So anyways, I didn't want to share this bit of this story or this paper I found. I'll leave the link in the description or in the comments to this video, or in the chat, let me say it that way. Took me a second there. Freemasons in China, the Portuguese link. Interesting, we had Portugal come up in the stream earlier as well. There are 3 versions of the paper. It's 8 pages. It was published, or at least posted, October 25th, 2024. The emergence of Freemasonry in China has been reported as a British invention, coming from the historical conflict, the Opium War, that involved Great Britain and China in a dispute about the trading routes in eastern Chinese coast and commerce of the narcotic product, amongst the Chinese population. In the outcome of this bloody war, the British were entitled to several extraterritorial concessions, namely the island of Hong Kong, the one place where Freemasonry still exists in China. These concession areas in Canton and other Chinese ports were fundamental to secure the routes of its trade and presence as a new imperial power in the East. The ships that made the trade of opium from Britain to China and silk, porcelain, or tea towards London traveled beyond sailors, merchants, military personnel, bureaucrats, businessmen, intellectuals, or lawyers who looked to start a new life in the Chinese land. Freemasonry clubs were part of the British tradition and meeting places for the gentry and the administrative bureaucracy that followed the trace of East India Company ships. Easily, Masonic lodges emerged in the cities where the British built their settlements, separated from the Chinese township, and where the English ways of life were recreated for the benefit of the merchant and expatriate community. Taking Hong Kong and Kowloon as spoils of the bloody conflict, or as spoils of the bloody conflict that aligned it against the Celestial Empire, Great Britain recreated in the arid scraps of the land a burgeoning city built according to British rules and oddities, ruled by the common law and imperial regulations. As lodges emerged on the island in sort of gentlemen's clubs, the Chinese bourgeois was let carefully outside them. Only after the foundation of the People's Republic of China in 1949 did this situation change, following the departure of British families running away from political turmoil in China that made any foreign presence impossible. The British lodges firstly created in China divided themselves by Hong Kong and Taiwan, in the first creating districts subordinated to the Grand Lodges of England, Scotland, and Ireland, and in the second entering a process of gradual autonomy that led to the creation of the Grand Lodge of China in Taiwan, a corpse that for a long time was not recognized by British Freemasonry for reasons that are implicit. Different to this record, there's evidence that Freemasonry came to the East years before than has been argued, originating in Macau, a colony of Portugal, that happened in the first half of the 18th century. In 1759, a ship named Prince Carl of the Swedish Company of the Eastern Indian Islands arrived at Macau. The Freemasons that traveled in this ship brought a letter of the patent to meet in lodge in any port that they coasted, and eventually they did it in Macau. They initiated profanes and associated Portuguese and other foreign Freemasons that lived already in the colony. The impact was determinate as the ships transported employees of the company. This was the start of the process of the creation of Masonic lodges in China. So again, I think I've talked about this before. Freemasonry spread kind of 3 ways throughout the world. One of the biggest ones, though, was through economic factors, right? And you see here in China, you see it not expanding necessarily through military, though the military victory and the annexation of Hong Kong by the British created the circumstances, but that allowed for bureaucrats, businessmen, sailors, merchants, intellectuals, and lawyers to travel to Hong Kong to set up a new life there, and in the process to bring Freemasonry with them. It was about trade routes and trade as opposed to military conflict. versus you also see, again, traders starting lodges in Macau from Portugal in kind of the Chinese. So you see those two different kind of forms. Let me see if I can find it here. Thereafter, an independent, so going back to the settlement in Macau and Portugal, thereafter, an independent segment of European Freemasonry took root in Macau, formed by members of the local communities and facilitated by the use of the Francois language of the East, the Portuguese. Macau came under Portuguese rule in the middle of the 16th century, 1557, as premium of the assistance given by Portuguese ships to Chinese imperial authorities in the persecution of pirates that scourged the Chinese ports. Portuguese presence was never disputed by the Chinese authorities or foreign powers, and the situation extended till the 19th century, when China was defeated by the British Navy in the Opium War. In 1862, a treaty was signed between the Portuguese monarch and the Imperial Chinese government. Macau became a colony of Portugal and later a dependent territory, being clear that Lisbon had no sovereign power over that piece of land, but just an administrative political power. That situation has been qualified as divided jurisdiction, with the Portuguese local authorities governing the expatriate community and the imperial authority of Canton directing the bulk of the Chinese district. This situation will last till the end of the 20th century, when an administrative special regent was installed. Dependent on Beijing and Portugal, the first European power to come to the east, was the last to leave in December 1999. Living with considerable autonomy from the faraway Portugal, the Portuguese community in Macau furthered the interchange of cultures, philosophies, moods of living, and modes of learning, and even religious practices between the Caucasian minority and the Chinese majority. Insofar, Macau emerged as a very cosmopolitan and open city where district social practices were broadly tolerated. Different from what happened in Hong Kong, interracial marriages with Chinese, Indian, or Malay women were most common, forming gradually a group named Macanese, which interlinked the Portuguese with the Chinese. Freemasonry accompanied this path of societal compromise, and some lodges and Masonic groups emerged incorporating Portuguese expatriates and relevant members of the Macanese community, along with the administrative bureau, the local companies, the liberal professions, and the circles of intellectuals that formed a ferment of the intellectual movement, or ferment local society. Two of them, Camilo Pesina and Wen Casalu de Moraes, were members of the intellectual movement of symbolism at earliest 20th century. They were applauded poets and usually present in the clubs and social events of the local bourgeoisie. Both were Freemasons and members of a Portuguese lodge named Luís de Camões, dependent on the Grand Orient of Portugal. The different logic of the colonization of both empires, the raising influence of the Chinese in life of the Macau, the hegemonic vision of Britain as a grand power in the Indic and Pacific Oceans, made any coordination between the two crafts basically impossible. So what they're saying there is, basically in this era you had Portuguese Freemasonry in Macau, which was open to including, basically it was in a society that included and welcomed both Portuguese and Chinese members into the community and then into Freemasonry, versus British Freemasonry in Hong Kong, which was very homogeneous and almost exclusively open to British subjects and did not welcome, Chinese into it, which meant you had very different types of Freemasonry being practiced in the same region and very little overlap between the two. Welcome if you're just joining us. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm talking about Freemasonry in China, the history of it, because China is making itself known, trending in the news due to the 104% tariffs, or I suppose we could say President Trump is making China known due to the tariffs, or getting China to be trending because of these tariffs. But I found this really interesting article. It's an 8-page paper about Freemasonry in China in the 17th and 18th century. So I'm just reading from that because I think it's fascinating. I left a link for it above. I've had a few Jewish brothers on the platform, most recently Matthew Parker, who talked about the connections between Freemasonry and Judaism, which was a great interview. I really enjoyed it, Courtney. So yeah, Matthew Parker was the most recent Jewish brother I had on the channel. And I just want to take a stop and take a moment to say we have 14 votes now. Ever attended a theater production or music event at the Windsor Masonic Temple? 14 votes. Looks like 6 yes, 6 no, 2 plan twos. And if you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing and what it is that you want to talk about. I'm just going to keep reading from this paper a little while longer. Just give me 1 second. So, basically, early 18th century, you've got Freemasonry in Hong Kong being organized and run under the British auspices. That is basically exclusive to British subjects. And you have Freemasonry on the island of Macau, which is being run by Portuguese Freemasons and is open to both the local population and Portuguese subjects, as well as a group of people known as the Macanese who were had parentage from both Portuguese parentage as well as Chinese. So in the same way you had the Métis, which were the descendants of French and First Nations, or French and Indian, you had Macanese, which was the descendants of Portuguese and Chinese descendants, or Chinese parentage, and they were welcomed into lodges. I'm just actually curious how far Macau is from Hong Kong. I'm actually going to check that out quickly. Rondo, welcome Rondo. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you are doing well. Let me know how it's going. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the like and subscribe button, etc., etc. Answer our poll question. Well, so it's like 3-hour by shuttle bus or by boat, it looks like. So yeah, it's relatively close to each other. It's interesting to have Freemasonry so close to each other, yet no communication between the two bodies. Portuguese Freemasons were deeply, I'm going to go above. The two Masonic communities lived apart, divided by mother languages, Portuguese, English, used by executive powers, Great Britain and Portugal, although there existed reasons to believe that contact between Freemasons of Hong Kong and Macau existed. The division would aggravate during the 19th and 20th centuries, part of it by historical developments happening in Portugal, where liberal and absolute kings alternate. The first allowing Freemasons to perform their activities, recruiting new members and increasing the number of lodges. The second persecuting Freemasons and crashing lodges. So basically, in Portugal in the 19th and 20th centuries, you had liberal kings who were supportive of Freemasonry and allowed Freemasonry to grow. And then every now and then you'd get a conservative or absolute king who would hate Freemasonry. Once again, it's interesting. You see, and we saw this with Garibaldi, the founder of Britain, you see support for Freemasonry primarily amongst the left or more liberal elements of society. And the distrust and dislike of Freemasonry amongst the more conservative elements of society or conservative rulers, which is interesting. Portuguese Freemasons were deeply involved in liberal movements of the 19th century, and as it was summarized elsewhere, participated in the political movements that pushed the overthrow of monarchies of divine power and helped the creation of constitutional monarchies every place in Europe. Garibaldi of Italy, another great example of that. Portuguese craft although a British invention, adhered enthusiastically to the French stylish Club de Réflexion and to a more cosmopolitan and politicized participation in the affairs of the profane world. As a reflex, Macau's lodges and ritualistic practices were more liberalized than its counterparts in Hong Kong. A basic point of this divide is the opposite attitude concerning regularity. Freemason's first lodge in China has been reclaimed as a creation of the Grand Lodge of England, dating to 1788. Basically, there seems that there's a lot of debate as to what actually was the first lodge. What can be said is that during the 19th century, two distinct grand lodges existed. One, the Northern China District, gathering 5 lodges located in Shanghai that come to be eventually 11 lodges. The other, the Southern China District, associating 7 lodges under its jurisdiction, later extended to 9. But the Western Masonic presence was not restricted to English lodges, as it has been argued. In 1908, there were Scottish, American, German lodges at work in China. Because other expatriate community attended there, participating intensely on trade. Once again, we see Freemasonry extending somewhere due to economic reasons, in this case, expanding into mainland China from Hong Kong and Macau to the mainland. A century earlier, following the installation of the Portuguese in Macau, Freemasons participated randomly in activities organized by foreign crews of European ships, which rest in Macau ports before sailing throughout Chinese waters. An important part of the trade was opium and was in the hands of the British merchants stretching around the several branches of the Pearl River and the islands close to Macau. The situation provoked a harsh reaction from the imperial government of China that forbade the circuit of these ships. Largest British companies took refuge in Macau between 1800 and 1820, became the largest center of business activity in the region. Freemasonry in Portugal emerged in the 18th century with early lodges facing opposition from the Catholic Church and Inquisition. That is true, Courtney. Apparently, there were several, or at least one, I guess I should say, that I know of, Portuguese Freemason who was actually captured and tortured by the Inquisition. So, again, a lot of Masons nowadays think they have it tough, and I'm sure a lot do, but at least none in North America, to my knowledge, have ever been captured and tortured by an Inquisition. Though, I say that, who knows what the future will hold, but let's all just knock on wood that doesn't take place. It did play a role in the Enlightenment movement. Again, you see the idea of Freemasonry being attached more to liberal or Enlightenment or left wing, if that's the term that you want to use, groups or groupings, right, as opposed to the more right wing. So that's very interesting. Just that you see these again, the way that Freemasonry kind of aligned itself, or was aligned, maybe by others, with certain political movements tending to be more on the left in the 17th and 18th centuries, and even early 19th centuries, whereas now I think many tend to view it more as right-wing for different reasons. Oh, there's a book in the history of Portuguese Freemasonry. Olivier Marquis quotes the Annuary of the Grand Lodge, GOL, stating that a lodge named the Louis de Camo and number 383 existed in Macau and practiced the Scottish Rite. What if the Enlightenment was just being woke? Well, wow, that's a question and a half, Rondo. Or a statement and a half, or a question and a half. I mean, one thing, and I see this with a lot of my own, even friends and stuff, is, woke is as woke does. Woke has become, in my opinion, one of those statements that doesn't really mean anything. It's just a term you throw out to kind of win an argument. So if you're conservative and somebody says something you don't like, you can just throw back like you're just woke as a way of ignoring whatever the actual discussion point was or issue was, right? And by the same token, you get that with left and right too, where the left will just throw a term at the right to get them to and it's kind of almost become like a hashtagable search term where if I say, I disagree with this because whatever, I disagree with this for whatever reason, I disagree because I think the proper way to deal with trade is to, emphasize the reduction of barriers. That's not going to get that many clicks. But if I say this is a woke trade policy, whatever that means, then suddenly, or this is the anti-woke trade policy, then suddenly more people find it on social media because woke tends to boost the algorithm, right? So I'm not a big fan of the term woke one way or the other. Certainly, I think if the term existed during the Enlightenment, which was, what was the dates of the Enlightenment again? The late 17th, late 17th to late 18th century. Certainly, I think if the term woke had existed at that time, many of the critics of the Enlightenment would have called it woke, right? But luckily, it didn't exist at the time, so no one could throw that at them. But I've never been a big fan of the term woke. I think it's a shortcut to communication, and it's a way to attack somebody without actually attacking what's being said. So it's basically unknown the policy of recruitment by the local Portuguese lodge, but descriptions of the life in the colony during the first half of the 20th century point out that the Brotherhood was composed of government staff, members of the military, the garrison, the Portuguese garrison at Macau, liberal professionals, and probably members of the local clergy, sympathetic to the liberal and republican ideals in fashion in Europe. It has been advanced that most of the governors of Macau after Pinto that governed the colony between 1837 and 1843 were Freemasons. Three historical figures had a special role in Freemasonry and deserve particular reference. The first, Antonio Alexandra, the second, Rodrigo Rodriguez, and the third, Camilo Pesana. Antonio Alexandra was born in Macau, 1837. He took a degree of engineer in the Stonyhurst College in England, learned foreign languages, and became consul of Italy, France, vice consul of Brazil, and consul of Belgium in Macau. He planned several buildings in Macau that became historic spots: the military hospital of St. January, the chapel of the cemetery of St. Michael, and the structure that became known as the Palace of the Government. Another historical spot was sold to Antonio's father. Antonio Alexander was locally known as a Freemason and relevant figure in local society, housing in its house several social and cultural events. His house still exhibits today signs of Masonic symbolism in its facade as well as interior. He died in May 21, age 68. Rodrigo Rodriguez, a physician, member of the Portuguese Republican Party, graduated in 1902 in Lisbon in tropical medicine, probably pretty important there. Started its medical career by becoming an army physician, then joining the colonial service. He was the governor of Macau between 1923 and 1925. The governor encouraged a fair and scrupulous management of public affairs. It is unconfirmed if he maintained any Masonic activity in Macau or was a member of the lodge present there, but it looks like he joined while studying tropical medicine. Warrior Fat Cat Club back again. Thank you for being back. I'm just talking about Freemasonry in China, its history. Um, Interesting little piece of trivia. It looks like there were two Masonic Grand Lodges and Masonic bodies operating in Hong Kong in the 17th and 18th century. One on the island of Macau, which was run through the Grand Lodge of Portugal and Portuguese Freemasonry, and one on Hong Kong, which was run through United Grand Lodge of England and British Freemasonry. The Macau lodges were much more open to membership from outside the Portuguese community, including Macanese, which were people who were descended from um, Portuguese and Chinese parents, kind of like the Métis in Canada. Whereas Hong Kong was much more insular and tended to have membership exclusive for British Freemasons who would travel there for economic purposes. Again, you see in Hong Kong, Macau, and China, Freemasonry Freemasonry growing based on trade and economic interests, which is one of the main ways Freemasonry extended throughout the world. Sometimes it extended through military and through military lodges. Oftentimes, though, it extended through economic trade routes. And you see that with China, where traders basically brought Freemasonry, British traders brought Freemasonry to Hong Kong, and Portuguese traders and businessmen brought Freemasonry to Macau. So, Warrior Cat Fan Club. Let me know how it's going. Thank you for being back once again. As always, hope you'll check out my other videos on YouTube, not just my live streams, but my actual podcast interviews. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. And let me know how it's doing now that you're back, and if you're enjoying the stream at all. And, share the stream, etc., etc. We also have, let's see if I keep reading. To me, woke is when I stop sleeping. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the woke term myself. So I guess my philosophy would be considered woke in some ways. I don't know. I don't know what I am. Just a guy who's happy to be on YouTube streaming with all you wonderful people. What is the Masonic body in Portugal? I knew this a second ago. It is I can't pronounce this, Grand Loja Unida de Portugal. GLUP, it looks like. Well, I don't know all the answers to that, Courtney. Or the regular Grand Lodge of Portugal, excuse me. GLRP was established in 1991 by the Grand Lodge National Francais in an attempt to introduce regular organized Freemasonry into Portugal. I don't know the answer to that fully, Courtney, but my suspicion is their location being right on the sea or the water helped them in terms of it gave them access to trade routes that they would not otherwise have. It was easy and kind of you almost had to, it gave them access to trade routes they would not otherwise have access to. It also gave them easy access to get on the water themselves and travel to Morocco, basically all of the west of Africa, as well as up through United Kingdom and France. Go through the Straits of Gibraltar. So my suspicion is their location meant even though they were small, they had access to trade routes and trading partners that bigger countries maybe did not have access to. It is fascinating to think that, you've got Portugal and you've got China basically on opposite ends of the world. And yet they were able to, Portugal was able to create a whole a colony there in Macau and basically bring Freemasonry to China. And same thing with Britain and Hong Kong, right? I wonder how long it would take, just out of curiosity, how long would it take these traders and stuff to make it? How long boat ride from Portugal to Macau? '18th century. In the 18th century, a round trip from Lisbon to Macau and back could take 17 to 18 months. So basically, the journey from Lisbon to Macau, which was the India route, typically involved a voyage of 7 to 8 months, taking advantage of monsoon winds to sail around the Cape of Good Hope and into the Indian Ocean. I remember my dad telling me he went through the Cape of Good Hope. So basically, though, when you think about it, in order to create Freemasonry in Macau, Portuguese merchants, sailors, traders, family members, military personnel, all the people on these boats had to travel 7 to 8 months to get there, sailing around the Cape of Good Hope and into the Indian Ocean. So you think about all the struggles they had to go through to try to, maybe they weren't going to start Freemasonry there, but the fact that they were willing to go through all that allowed for Freemasonry to start there, to its credit. After a coup d'etat that led to the dictatorship of the new state under Salazar, the Masonic activity ceased to exist in any part of the Portuguese Empire, including Macau, namely in Macau. Following the Carnation Revolution of April 24th, 1974, the Grand Orient Listino retake in full its activities and promoted the raising of columns of a third lodge in Macau. This lodge was, according to different sources, consecrated in the late 1980s during the tenure of Carlos Melancia, governor of Macau. Integrated members of the Portuguese government, liberal professions, Macanese community, and has been active till today. In 2007, a triangle of the Grand Legal Lodge of Portugal was created by Macau by decree of the third Grand Master of the Portuguese regular craft. Freemasonry in China is resumed into Hong Kong and Macau, although contradictory reports acknowledge the existence of some type of Masonic activity in mainland China, restricted to expatriates living in Shanghai and Beijing. If the apron represents a badge of a Mason, connects the working stonemason, what deeper symbolic meaning does it hold to Freemason? Well, I mean, the badge of a Freemason, right? The apron. I think it part of it is just a matter of it does have that connection between our stone Masonic operative brethren, as well as connects them to us, right? And that's a really important symbolic meaning of itself. And then there's this idea of it's meant to remind us to protect ourselves from vice and kind of to make sure that we're an operative Mason's apron protects his garment, protects his clothes from stain, and metaphorically, hopefully, our aprons help remind us to protect ourselves from sin or vice. Define sin as you will. Because that is in and of itself a very complicated question. If you are just joining us, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. As always, please, if you can, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing, and as always, what it is that you want to talk about. If you're just new to this stream, we do these streams every Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about Freemasonry. And usually the first hour is just anybody who wants to join can. We talk about anything anybody wants. It's just a chance to get to know the audience. And then the second hour is specific topics. Today it was Freemasonry in China, or early Freemasonry in China, the work of the Portuguese and basically British bringing Freemasonry to China through Hong Kong and Macau. And then kind of its current status, primarily existing in Hong Kong and Macau, although there are reports of it also existing in Shanghai and Beijing amongst expatriates, though I don't think that's ever been confirmed. Because to my knowledge, in mainland China, Freemasonry is banned by the Chinese Communist Party. And now that we are done talking about that, we're back to just the welcoming visitors, welcoming the audience. Please, if you're just joining us and you've done so yet, please take a moment to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing and what it is that you want to talk about. Any questions you have about Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. I can't promise I'll be able to answer every question, but I have been a Mason myself since 2007. Hopefully, I can at least try to answer some questions or provide some insights. Let's give it a bit more time, though. Let's see who else joins. A lot, yeah. So the tassels are pretty common. A lot of Masonic aprons have them. It depends on how high you get and what your rank is, especially in the States, where the aprons are worn differently and are of a different type. Usually you don't get the tassels till you get an officer's chair. In Ontario, the tassels are on every third degree, basically Master Mason's apron. So, yeah, my apron has tassels as well, which I love very much. I do think, even though I love my American brothers very much, I would say one of my favorite parts of Canadian Freemasonry is I think our aprons are quite nice. So that is something that I take a lot of pride in, is our beautiful Masonic aprons. Interesting. You're talking about that because you're just talking about Portugal. Portugal and Morocco are very, very close to each other. Morocco is, to my knowledge, the Muslim, the country with Muslim faith, where that is the faith of the country, which where Freemasonry is doing well, and where I think Freemasonry is actually encouraged, or at least not banned as it is in other Muslim majority countries. So that would probably be really cool to learn more about that and check them out. Maybe one day I'll do a stream or even do an interview with a Freemason from Morocco. I think that would be a lot of fun. Welcome if you're just joining us. Well, that's part of it. The tassels also represent 7, which is a very important number in Freemasonry. So again, though, it depends on the apron, on the office. There's a few different connections they have. The fact that there's 7 tassels, 7 is a very important number in Freemasonry, as well as it's a very important number historically. Dennis is back. Howdy. How's it going, Dennis? I hope that you are doing well. If you haven't done so yet, Dennis, I hope you'll hit the like button. I don't know how much you heard about what we were talking about when it came to Freemasonry in China, early China especially, as well as events taking place at the Windsor Masonic Temple ballroom. But I hope you are doing well. Aprons can be. I mean, some. Well, so there's 2 ways to answer that. So some Masons want to be buried with their apron, so that has happened in the past, where Masons have been buried with their apron, even their full regalia. So that's been known to happen. But Yeah, so during a Masonic funeral service, which is open to the public, it's open to family members, we will show an apron. We'll explain what it is to the family in attendance. Um, and then we will put it down on usually a table or something where kind of it raises it up, and then we will place pieces of evergreen on the apron as a symbol of the eternity of, if not life, of the soul. In the same way, an evergreen, is eternal. Uh, it exists in summer and winter. Does it die in winter? So too is the soul, and so we'll place a piece of evergreen on the apron as a symbol of the kind of the way the soul lasts. And then, or the everlasting of the soul, if that's the best way to put it. And then, usually we take the apron back with us, and as well as the evergreen, usually for the next service. So that is kind of a rough example. I mean, Masonic funeral services are themselves a really interesting, it tends to be the type of thing where almost more than anything else, our grand lodges really try to emphasize and push Masons to take part in Masonic funeral services because it's open to the public. You don't need dispensation to wear your regalia, at least in Ontario. Um, it can be one of the few times the public gets to see a Masonic ceremony. And especially if you're doing it for somebody's father, brother, son, whatever it might be, who has passed away. Um, it it can be a good way to, you don't want to think about promoting the craft during something as sad as a funeral service. It's not really the time to promote Freemasonry. Having said that, for better or worse, a lot of Grand Lodges do look at it as an opportunity to promote the craft to the family and to anybody in attendance, and potentially maybe get some people interested in joining who might have been at the funeral. The evergreen represents acacia. Yes, it does. That is correct. Uh, but I mean, in our ritual, we talk about the everlasting of the how it is everlasting like the soul. Freemason roots. I mean, that's a question and a half, Courtney. That would take a very long time to answer. I mean, part of it is just timing and luck and the dedication of its membership. And again, timing is a big part of it. The fact that these groups existed at a time when there really wasn't any other social safety net. So you kind of had to um, join a group like the Freemasons if you wanted to potentially have some type of insurance and some group that you could rely upon if you got sick or your family needed help. That combined with World War One and World War Two, which caused massive increases in Freemasonry because a lot of soldiers wanted to continue to experience camaraderie that they experienced in war when they returned back home and joined these communal groups, to the general push of civic society in the 20s and the 50s, to the fact that many men of influence did join, which then encouraged other people to join to try to get to know them. I mean, there's so many different kind of evolutionary tracks and traces and ways that Freemasonry grew over the years. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, but it's also one of those things where it's very hard to say there's just one factor, right? Um, and that's also why nowadays in 2025, when people kind of talk about Freemasonry's decline, at least in terms of membership and kind of community involvement and community relevance, again, there's no one way that Freemasonry evolved through the world. In the same way, there's no one cause of, if you want to call it the de-evolution of Freemasonry and the problems that it's facing, right? Both of those have many different factors at play, for better or worse, and so it's tough, right? If there was one thing that caused Freemasonry to evolve into a global fraternal organization with diverse members and rituals, if there was just one thing, then presumably we'd have an easier time slowing or even stopping the decline. But there's lots of things, and it's hard to figure out what was most important. So, my lodge secretary has an evergreen tree, and we use the branches from that tree for our Masonic funeral services. Very, very cool. That is, yeah, I mean, we're lucky. I mean, it's kind of sounds strange to call it lucky in fairness, but we've done enough Masonic services at enough different funeral homes that they kind of know what to expect. And so oftentimes when we go to a funeral home for a Masonic service, they will have already gone out and picked the evergreen branches and had it ready for us and have the room set up the way we need it. So that's really one of the best parts about kind of creating these relationships with these funeral homes is it makes it so much easier as someone who's had to organize a couple of these services. It makes it so much easier to organize a Masonic service if the funeral home where you're going knows what to expect and knows kind of how to set up the room, get the evergreen. You don't want to be running around at the last minute. I've been to some services where, some Mason, it's winter, it's cold outside, there's snow, he's in his suit, and he's running outside to find an evergreen bush to try to cut branches with like 5 minutes to go before the service starts, right? So I've seen I've seen that enough times. So I guess what I'm trying to say is to any Masonic funeral home, to any funeral home that is involved with Masonic services, thank you for being so helpful with oftentimes organizing these events. And it can be emotional too, right? For guys who, if you knew the brother well, if he was a good friend of yours, um, or if he was a good brother or whatever it is, that adds a level of emotion to it as well. You don't want to be thinking about that while also, you don't want to be thinking about that while also trying to get stuff at the last minute or get acacia or get whatever it is, right? You don't want to do that either. So I tend to judge funeral homes based on the quality of coffee because when I was a worshipful master, I was attending Masonic services both for my lodge and other lodges all the time. And it got to the point where if I heard they were having it at a funeral home with good coffee, I was always extra happy because I love coffee. And so that always made me happy. So anybody watching this, when I die and you need to find a place for my funeral, just try to make it a place with good coffee, please. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. Even though I can't drink it, I would hope other people would be able to drink it and enjoy it. I appreciate your questions. I can't always answer all of them because I might miss them. It depends if I see it or not. I don't always see everything that pops up in the chat, but I do always appreciate all of your all of your questions. If I don't get to it, don't worry. You can always come back to the stream tomorrow and ask me tomorrow. Because like I said, I don't always get to every question. Our secretary drove part-time for funeral homes, so we had an inn. That makes it a lot nicer. Sometimes it's good to have some inns, In life, sometimes that stuff always helps. Not that I have... I think sometimes it's weird. Sometimes people get kind of strange with it and have a tendency to think that anytime a Freemason has like an in with whatever it is they have an in with, that they kind of think it's some type of conspiracy or whatever it is. But like human nature is such that you're going to make friends with people, even if you're on a baseball team. If somebody on your baseball team drives for a funeral home, then you've got an in with that funeral home through your baseball team. It's one of those things where I think human nature is such that we make connections, we find our brothers, and we find our friends, our brothers, our connections, and we take advantage of them, which doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that to me. There's welcome if you're just joining us. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'm one subscription away from 2,050 subscribers. I'm at 2049. So if you want to go 2050, I would appreciate it. In the meantime, though, jump in the chat. Just say hello. Answer our poll question. Ever attended a theater production? Actually, maybe I'll switch it to, because we were talking about this a second ago. Ever attended a Masonic lodge in Hong Kong? There's also actually Chinese Freemasonry, which exists in, for example, it's here in BC, but it's not something I know a lot about. So I do need to learn more about it. But there is a specific branch of Freemasonry, Chinese Freemasonry, which you see it in some Chinatowns, which has its own Grand Lodges. But that is something I'll see about learning more about another day, and maybe make another stream. Might be kind of fun as well to do another stream of it. Two votes for the Hong Kong question, and looks like both no at this point. I think it'd be really fun to attend a Masonic lodge in Hong Kong or in China. Like, again, travel is such an important part of Freemasonry, and that includes traveling to places you maybe have never been to before, and taking part in Masonic meetings in places you've never been to before. I could have also asked, because I am hoping to get my new phone tomorrow. So if I get it, I'll be live streaming from that one. So we'll see how the new phone does, because I've never, like I said, I'm looking for a new phone that will help with live streaming, maybe a better microphone, maybe a better camera. So I'll let you guys know how that goes. Any new Masonic publications? Well, I did a article on Medium where I provided links to a whole bunch of newsletters um, that are published online, either sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly. Sometimes there's no set publication schedule. It's just when they get the chance to publish. I Cameron Bailey, he is on Emeth on Substack. He wrote a great article asking the question about what is Masonic, which is a really important question that we sometimes don't ask. Like, how far does the phrase Masonic extend? Does it extend to um, Eastern Star, Rainbow, Demolay? Does it extend to youth groups? Does it extend to buildings? Does it extend to social clubs, coffee clubs? Does it extend to this? Because this is my own thing. Like, that's something that the Grand Lodges are really struggling with as well, oftentimes, right? Like, how do you what does and does not a Grand Lodge have jurisdiction over? Which is, again, something that I think a lot of people don't know. So if you go to Substack, you search Emeth, Emeth, and check out the work done by Cameron Bailey, past Grand Master, of a Grand Lodge of Seattle, Washington, or Grand Lodge of Washington, I should say. I've visited with him a few times going down to Mexico for some fun events. So he's a really cool guy, and he wrote a great publication. No, it absolutely makes the process easier. I got what you were saying, Dad. So I 100% agree. Ever attended a Masonic Lodge in Hong Kong? 4 votes for no, 1 vote for hope to. I would be a hope to as well. I'd love to visit a lodge everywhere. In case anyone is wondering why we see a lot of risk-off trading today, trade war has intensified, particular focus on U.S. versus China. Again, White House says 104% China tariffs will take effect on Wednesday. Remember, in these current times, USD is not safe, according to, I'm just reading from Twitter. Again, or X, I surely don't have any financial advice to give, but we'll see how much this starts to affect our Masonic brothers. Tiled floor, square compasses, sacred volume, it's Masonic. Okay, but so then would you define, let's say you have a coffee, let's say every month a Masonic lodge has a breakfast that's open to anybody in their building. And they open up to wives, friends, family, anybody who has any connection. Would you say that's Masonic? Goodbye, Dad. It was great seeing you. I'll be talking to you tomorrow potentially about some plans for my return trip. That's the question, right? Because that's what a lot of people are struggling with. Because recently, Eastern Star in a state, I forget which one it was, Virginia, I think. I could be mistaken. But basically, a Grand Master in the States kicked out all Eastern Star lodges from their buildings. So then the question is Eastern Star Masonic, according not to at least one Grand Master? But, the tricky part of it is a lot of people struggling with it, unfortunately. And I don't know, by the way, what the answer is myself. I wish I did. I think a lot of people don't know what the answer is. And so we all kind of struggle. I tend to be pretty broad when it comes to how I would define Masonic. But at the same time, the danger is the more broadly you define Masonic, the more time you have to spend worrying about things like dispensation. What is Grand Lodge going to think? I mean, it becomes a whole thing in and of itself that you don't want to be. And one thing I hate is when anything is made a thing out of. But yeah, going back to Courtney's question, and if you're looking for something to read, a new Masonic publication, I would suggest you check out Cameron Bailey and Emmett. Freemasonry is a personal journey as well as a community effort, in my opinion. Love it. So I agree with that, but then the question becomes, what does Grand Lodges or a Grand Lodge have authority over? Because in theory, you'd say, okay, a Grand Lodge has authority over anything Masonic. But what does that actually mean, right? Because, so this podcast is Masonic. Does that mean a Grand Lodge has authority over it? And if so, in what way? Buildings are Masonic. Does that mean a building has to comply with Masonic dictates? Because don't forget, buildings also have to comply with federal, provincial, or state or local bylaws and codes, which in and of itself creates its own challenges. And what do you do if those two things counteract with each other? It is in and of itself a challenging situation. I don't pretend to know the answer, but I do know a lot of Grand Lodges are trying to, because everything, the stakes are so much higher, it's so much easier to get in trouble. A lot of Grand Lodges are really struggling with the extent to which they try to regulate and try to define Masonic versus non-Masonic activity. So that's a major challenge. And I think that challenge is only going to get bigger. And that is a whole, my God, you could spend hours debating that and talking about that, and it would not be easy. But my suspicion is those battles are going to become more strenuous over time, not less. All right, let's give it a bit more time. Let's see, as always, who else joins. But maybe, because I do still have to get ready for a lodge meeting tonight. Actually, Scottish Rite, speaking of Scottish Rite, a Scottish Rite meeting that I have happening tonight, along with some other things I got to do and some chores. So maybe call this stream shortly and then come back on again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Markets snapped back early, then sank. S&P 500 opened plus 3.3%, but faded red by close after White House confirmed 104% China tariffs hit at 12:01 a.m. Eastern. Dow, Nasdaq, S&P all reversed. Europe rallied today. Expect shaping up tomorrow as we wait China's response tonight. Let's give it a bit more time. Let's see who, if anybody else joins. No rush, but maybe, like I said, if not today, then we'll be back tomorrow doing more streams. As always, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're just joining, please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's see, maybe what I'll do is I will give this 5 more minutes, see if anybody else jumps on the chat to say hello. Then, as I said, I will be back tomorrow for another live stream which will be a blast. Maybe even, who knows, I'll do a couple-minute live stream tonight. Sometimes I like to try live streams at different times just to see if potentially we'll get more traction at a different time. Obviously, I'm suspecting there might be more people on in the evening. The problem is most evenings I have Masonic meetings I got to get to, so that makes it kind of challenging. All right. Just checking this. All right, I think with that, we will call the stream today. I'll be back on tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, probably streaming again from my mobile. Thank you guys so much for joining. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. All right, thanks. Bye.